Thanks for joining our media panel. My name is Sarah Damian. I'm the new media fellow with GAP's Food Integrity Campaign. I wanted to point out a good point that Tom Devine made in the last panel, that whistleblowers need to win a legal campaign by bringing different communities together in support of the issues that they raised. And media can be a very powerful tool in helping to do that. So I'm kind of excited to introduce our speakers for this workshop, who all have really good examples of successful applications of media to help raise issues that whistleblowers in the food industry are trying to bring to the public light. Before I introduce them, I just want to remind people, if they wanted to submit questions during any of their talks, you can go to foodwhistleBlower.org. So first off, we have Amanda Kloer, who's currently sitting in the middle. She's an editor with Change.org, which is an international online activism platform that connects people through causes they care about via petitions. And she organizes and promotes campaigns focusing on ending human trafficking and supporting workers' rights, but she's also done a lot of blogs raising awareness on food issues. Next we have Jean Baur, who is the co-founder and president of Farm Sanctuary, sitting on the far left. And he has done some amazing work in eliminating farm animal cruelty. He's gone to slaughterhouses and facilities around the country documenting their conditions, and has been successful in helping end state policies and ending pig gestation crates and battery cages. Then we have the Reverend Noelle Damico, who is with the Presbyterian Church USA. She's the coordinator for their campaign for fair food, which has been a central partner in helping with the Coalition of Immokalee Workers, which is a coalition of Florida farm workers in the tomato industry. She's collaborated with activists to convince major corporations to, in the food supply chain, to support their fair food principles, which include worker health and safety program, a complaint resolution system, and a worker-to-worker education process. So just to get a gist of what they'll be talking about, but we can go ahead and get started. Amanda, if you want to begin. Okay. Oops.
Hey everyone, it's nice to see you here. It is Friday afternoon, so I think you all deserve a big round of applause just for being here. So, well done, well done. I'm Amanda Kloer, and I'm an editor with Change.org. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about what Change.org is and what it does and how you can use it, and sort of some of the successes and victories that we've had using the media to promote social change. But I actually want to start out today with a question. So who in this room has ever read an article or learned something about the food industry that just really teed you off? Everyone. This is why we're here on a Friday afternoon, isn't it? Does anyone want to share something that they've read recently that really upset them? An injustice? No? Oh, there you go.
I saw food ink,
that one's kind of chock full, isn't it? What else? Do we have another one?
I just read something about one of the reasons why we are not buying food, or other countries are not buying food from us. And what I thought was really interesting was how they, whoever wrote it, had kind of twisted that there are certain things that happen to our food here, but the people in other countries, they don't want to purchase the food, which I don't blame them, but they're making it seem like that it's a lie coming to them about how the food has been tainted, but they should buy it anyway.
Yeah. So these issues around industrial food and around food safety issues, they often feel really big and overwhelming. And I'm wondering how many people in this room have ever read that article or seen that film and felt really disempowered, like there's not much you can do about it. Who's felt that way? Awesome. Well, not awesome that you felt that way, but awesome that we're going to talk about how you can not feel that way in the future. So that's what I'm going to talk a little bit about today, and what I think my panelists are going to talk about too, is how we can use the media to empower individuals and organizations to create social change in a meaningful way. And which one of these is my clicker for PowerPoint? The bigger one? All right, let's see if that works. Oh, nope.
It's just an actual normal mouse. I don't think.
Oh.
There you go.
Look at that. Yeah. Don't tell anyone that the internet startup person was having such trouble with technology. So Change.org, for you guys who don't know, is actually the largest online social action platform on the web. Right now we're at about 2.5 million members, and we are growing by leaps and bounds, specifically adding about 150,000 new members a month. So we're expanding rapidly. And part of the reason behind our success is that we are really focused on empowering individuals to create, to promote, and eventually to win campaigns for grassroots social change. I'm going to give you a brief overview of sort of how the technology of change works, how to start a campaign, and then go into some of our really successful campaigns. So Change.org is an open source platform, and that means that anybody, any individual or any entity can go on there, start a petition, and from there begin a campaign to create social change. One of the reasons that we wanted this technology to be available to everyone is because we feel like a lot of times it's people within communities that are best able to voice what needs to happen in those communities to change them. We've got a lot of really fantastic examples on the site right now of successful campaigns that have been started by people at the very, very grassroots level. One of the most popular petitions in the history of the site was one that was started by a group of lesbians in South Africa who were wanting to get the issue of corrective rape, which is men raping lesbian women in order to, quote unquote, turn them straight, considered a hate crime. And because of the petition that they started on Change.org, they were able to get a meeting with the Minister of Justice and start a national conversation about this issue and about women's rights and about rights of LGBT persons. So certainly having that grassroots component is a huge part of our success. When a group like that joins Change.org and goes and creates a petition, they select a target. That could be a company, a lawmaker, a decision maker, and every time somebody signs a Change.org petition, it generates an individual email to that person, to that target. So for President Obama, who is the target of a lot of our email campaigns, he gets a lot of email. That maybe doesn't make such a difference to him. But for a city councilman or for the PR person of a consumer-facing brand, waking up in the morning and suddenly having 500 emails in your inbox from Change.org members who are all writing to you because they're concerned about a specific issue, that can make a big difference. That can really be something that sort of motivates you to action in a new way. We also provide strong editorial support for all of our campaigns. We have editors for a number of different causes. I actually edit the human trafficking area. We have a fantastic editor, Sarah Parsons, who couldn't be here today, who works specifically on sustainable food on the site. We also work on environment and health and lots of related issues. So if you guys are in a position where you're starting campaigns and you want to get that extra layer of publicity, I really, really recommend that you guys get in touch with some of our editors, and we can help you promote your campaign and start to get some national attention for it. Another component of the site that's really important is the deep social media integration that we have. It's really easy on Change.org when you start a petition to share it on Facebook and Twitter. And in fact, most of the success of our petitions is pushed through social media networks, either through Change's social media networks or through Facebook and Twitter networks. It's amazing how responsive companies especially are to campaigns on Facebook and Twitter, even when they wouldn't necessarily be so responsive to those campaigns in traditional media. We've got a button on every petition that once you sign it allows you to share it with your friends on Facebook and Twitter, and that's a really important way to make it easy for people once they've signed a petition, once they've taken action, to stay engaged with the issue, to stay engaged with the campaign, and to keep sharing that and keep the momentum going.
All right, we're going to go quickly through how to create a compelling campaign on change.org. And a compelling campaign is a winning campaign most of the time. It takes definitely a little bit of practice, but there are 5 key components to creating what's going to be a successful campaign. The first is that you need a compelling hook, a good story to get people interested. Legislation, while it's really, really important by itself, isn't that interesting to a lot of people. It's dry, it's full of a lot of technical language. So having a story that goes with a piece of legislation, for example, about an individual experience, about a situation that's occurring that's a grave injustice, that can really sort of draw people into the petition and get them excited and get them interested in learning more about the issue and hopefully taking action on the issue. The most challenging part of creating these petitions is having a clear and concrete and winnable ask. So we have a lot of petitions on our site that are along the lines of, tell President Obama to improve food safety. Obviously, a laudable goal, but very, very broad. What does that mean? Is Obama the person who can really do that? What would he need to do? What steps can be taken? A campaign that has a broad ask like that is challenging because it's very, very difficult to measure, and it's difficult for the target to really act upon. I see a lot that say, you know, tell President Obama or tell the Senate to end human trafficking. I think that if the Senate knew how to end human trafficking by now, they would have done it. The problem is that they don't know how to do these things, and so that's where we as advocates have to give them a really clear and concrete roadmap to the actions that we want these decision makers to take. The third important component is having a target who's an appropriate target. That means somebody who can actually act on your issue. If I have a campaign asking Walmart to, you know, ratify a United Nations convention, it's not really a decision that Walmart can make unless you think maybe they own the United Nations, which would be an interesting argument to make. But in general, you want to make sure that you're targeting somebody who can actually take action on the issue that you care about, and that the action you're asking them to take is within the realm of plausibility. You know, asking a company whose practices perhaps you don't care for to shut down entirely probably isn't going to be feasible, but asking them to improve those practices will be. And so that's what we mean when we talk about having a clear and concrete and specific ask. Promotion is up there 3 times. It really should be up there probably 37 times if we're going to be talking about how much time you need to spend on each stage. The promotion stage of the campaign is usually the one that gets dropped off the most easily because you get excited, you go on, write the petition, we get the good targets in, we've got a compelling story that goes with it, and then after that, nothing really happens unless there's some level of promotion. So this is the time when I always encourage people to get in touch with myself, and the other Change.org editors will help you out, but also getting in touch with traditional media outlets, using social media integration like Facebook and Twitter to promote your petition, to promote your campaign is incredibly important for it to be a success. And finally, I put victory as a part of the campaign because I think that victory should be a part of every campaign, ideally. And also because winning a campaign is a really, really excellent opportunity to address related issues. For example, you know, if we do a campaign that achieves a victory in changing one company's business practices, to take a look at how we can engage in changing other companies' business practices as well. So I'm going to go quickly through a few examples of successful campaigns that we've had and why those campaigns were successful, and sort of give you an overview of the sorts of things that Change.org does a lot. So national legislation is definitely an issue that we deal with a lot, and this was a campaign about the Food Safety Act specifically. It gained a lot of traction, gained a lot of signatures, got a lot of attention around the issue, ultimately a very, very strong campaign. And it was because a lot of the narrative had a compelling story, because it was specific. It was about a specific piece of legislation, and it was asking people who could enact that legislation to enact that legislation. However, I think that national legislation is not quite our bread and butter and what Change.org is uniquely good for. Because there's a lot of ways to get the attention of Congress. You know, technically you guys all pay their salaries. They should be listening to you anyway. What I think that Change.org is actually a lot better at is doing campaigns that are targeting companies, and especially consumer-facing brands. One of the things I wanted to share with you was a story that's not on the PowerPoint because it just happened last night. And that is that Change.org ran a campaign asking 1-800-Flowers to make some changes in how they do business, specifically to offer fair trade flowers, to create a code of conduct for suppliers, and to regularly publish information about where they source their flowers to their consumers. The idea being that there's a lot of exploitation of workers that goes on in the cut flower industry, and as the world's largest florist, we really wanted them to do something to help prevent their company supporting that exploitation. So we launched a campaign, and after about 72 hours of emailing and Facebooking and Twittering, they responded and agreed to do everything we asked, and were very, very proactive, and were very, very supportive. So that's an example of sort of a way that this sort of campaign model can really change, you know, the way a massive, massive company is conducting themselves and doing business in a very, very short period of time. We're talking less than 3 days of advocacy. I also have up here our campaign supporting the CIW's fantastic work at getting grocery chains to sign on to their Fair Food campaign. And we've gotten a lot of support for this campaign targeting Publix. Certainly have been able to share some of the not so smooth things that some of their PR and media people have said in the press, which have our best friends. It's true, which have garnered some national attention. And I'll let my wonderful colleagues.
Atrocities are not our business.
It's true. But you know, I think that this has been a very successful campaign so far, and we're going to continue to ramp up the pressure on Publix in asking them to agree to this. And the final one that I wanted to talk about briefly was what we call our hyper-local campaigns. So Change.org is really great to address these national issues, national legislation, national companies that have practices which may or may not be the best practices. But we're also really successful at addressing local issues. This was a campaign that addressed a situation in Santa Monica where there was a law that actually made sustainable backyard beekeeping illegal. And I'm sure everyone in this room is much more familiar with the bee-emergency that's going on right now than I even am. But the goal was to allow for sustainable backyard beekeeping in order to help, you know, increase population of bees and as a way to empower individuals to engage in a sustainable food practice. So we actually won this campaign with just less than 200 signatures. And why was this campaign so successful with so few signatures? One of the reasons is because local politicians are much more susceptible to public pressure, and especially national public pressure. A Santa Monica city councilman isn't used to getting 200 emails in his inbox every morning the way a senator is, or the way, you know, the CEO or the PR person of a Fortune 500 company is. So that's something to keep in mind, you know, as you're thinking about using the site. And you know, I'd like to say that I certainly am offering myself as a resource to anyone in this room who's interested in starting a campaign, who's interested in promoting an existing campaign, because I think that Change is really a fantastic grassroots tool to empower individuals to start to work on these issues and create victories and create change in their communities. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Amanda. Now I'd like to bring up Jean.
Great, thank you, Sarah. And my name is Gene Baur. I'm the president and co-founder of Farm Sanctuary. We work specifically on issues related to how animals are treated on farms for our food. And I'm a vegan. I eat no meat, no dairy, no eggs. I've been a vegan since 1985. And you know, tying back to what Amanda said about having a compelling case and a winnable, feasible ask, I would love to get in the media and ask our world to become vegan tomorrow. But I don't imagine that that's going to happen. So with our work, we focus on issues that are appalling to most people and that most people are ready to hear. And some of the issues we've dealt with have to do with downed animals, animals that are too sick to walk. These are animals that are literally dragged onto trucks and taken to slaughter and used for human food. In some cases, they're pushed with forklifts, dragged with chains. And over the years, we've been able to get video footage showing what is happening. And when we've been able to get that footage in the media, and we've gotten some significant media, we've got this on Larry King Live, we got it on NBC National News, it resulted in legislators responding. We didn't actually have our specific goals in mind when we started. We wanted to end this cruelty. But once we got this on national television, Senator Akaka from Hawaii and then Gary Ackerman from New York were interested in introducing federal legislation. And so we worked on the Downed Animal Protection Act in Washington, D.C. for many years, and there were ups and downs, and we eventually ended up having to go the legal route and to sue the USDA, and our argument was that downed animals are diseased, and diseased animals by law cannot be used for human food. The USDA wrote us back and said that we were incorrect and that it was legal and appropriate and common for diseased animals to be used for human food. So we ended up going to court, and we were in that process when a downed cow in Washington state was found to have mad cow disease. Once that happened, it got tons of coverage, as you can imagine, in the press, and the USDA and the beef industry was motivated to prevent downed animals from going into the food supply, and we were able to succeed in that after lots of media coverage and consumers being appalled. You know, I think with whistleblowers, as well as with the media, we're basically just shining a light on bad things that are happening. And there are different ways to do that. And the media is a way to reach the masses. And thankfully with Change.org and with the internet, with social media, it's easier and easier to reach a lot of people. And it's easier for each person to reach other people. You know, historically, the media has been very, and still is, the mainstream media is not as receptive to messages that are a little bit outside the mainstream. But the mainstream media is still pretty important. We've worked on initiative campaigns, as well as this effort I mentioned to prevent downed animals from going to the food supply. We work on campaigns to prevent animals on factory farms from being confined in cages and crates where they're packed so tightly they can't even turn around or stretch their limbs. And they'll live this way for months or even years. And now most citizens don't know about this. So our goal is to say, here's what's going on. You know, shine the light on this. And then with the initiative campaigns, we have a measure that is on the ballot for citizens to vote on. The first one we did was in Florida back in 2002. Then we did one in Arizona in 2006. And then the last one we did was in California in 2008. And what we said, again, was these animals, and we were dealing with 3 confinement systems. Veal crates, which is how young calves are raised, who are raised for veal, are confined. They're chained by the neck in these 2-foot wide wooden crates for their whole lives. Gestation crates, which is how breeding pigs are kept. They're in these 2-foot wide metal enclosures where they're standing on concrete floors. They're constantly scraping against the bars of their cages. They can't move. And they'll live this way for years. And then battery cages, which is how egg-laying hens are kept in these small wire enclosures where they're constantly scraping against the wire bars. Their feathers wear off. They end up with bruises and abrasions on their bodies, and they'll live this way for about a year. So we were able to air images of that throughout each of these states to show people what was happening, and in each case, voters voted overwhelmingly to ban those cruel practices. Now, with the initiatives, we have a multi-pronged media strategy. We do paid advertising, and that's very expensive. You know, it was millions of dollars in California. But we also have a very active earned media campaign, and we encourage people to put this out on their Facebook pages and do that whole social networking thing. But we also encourage people to write letters to the editor of the local papers. And that demonstrates that citizens do care about this. So we do both the paid media and the earned media. And you know, the compelling images have been extremely effective when it has come to the earned media. In California, shortly before there was going to be a vote on Proposition 2 in 2008. There was a media story that broke about downed cows at the Hallmark Westland slaughter plant in Southern California that were being mistreated horribly. Once that aired, citizens in California saw it, and we were collecting signatures at the time to put this measure on the ballot, and it was a lot easier to collect signatures when people saw that. Even though the downed animal issue was different than the confinement of animals, the general sense that something was wrong permeated, and people were more responsive. So that happened in California, and then after that passed in 2008, we then decided to go to the Midwest, and we did polling. Whenever we do these initiative campaigns, we do polling to make sure that citizens basically agree with the position that we're advocating, and if they do, then we go forward. And so we did that in Michigan and Ohio. And in both states, after seeing the success in California, agribusiness came to the table and agreed to certain compromises in order to thwart the initiatives. And one of the reasons they did not want these initiatives to go forward was because of the awareness that would be raised, because of the media coverage that would have been garnered, and because people would start thinking about what is happening on these farms to these animals. And most people, when they think about it, don't think it's okay. So the media is a very powerful tool, but I would say also the internet now is an extremely powerful tool. Videotapes that have been taken undercover in these factory farms are now reaching more and more people more readily and more quickly than ever before, and I think that has also played a very important role in advancing the animal protection cause, but I think it also plays a role in advancing other causes, where the bottom line is to shine light on a cruelty, to shine light on an injustice, and I would also say that whistleblowers, although I'm sure there's some legal limitations, also can use the media in an amazing way to shine light on bad things that are happening and that need to change. So I guess I'll just leave it at that. You know, I know our time is short, and I just want to thank you all for being here, and I look forward to answering any questions if there are any. So thanks.
All right, we have one more amazing speaker, Noelle.
Friends, good afternoon. My name is Noelle Damico. I work for the Presbyterian Church USA, which has 2.3 million members across the United States. And I'm here to also remind you that religious people are people who often care very deeply about issues of food safety, human well-being, the well-being of animals, and the well-being of the earth. So don't forget us as you're organizing your campaigns for support. I want to take you back to 2001, when about 3,000 farm workers, most of whom come from Mexico, Guatemala, and Haiti, most of whom do not speak English as a first language, gathered in front of a Taco Bell restaurant in South Florida and called for a national consumer boycott of Taco Bell, which is part of the largest fast food corporation in the world, Yum Brands. Now in 2001, when farm workers who had faced stagnant poverty wages for 30 years of about 45 cents for every 32-pound bucket they picked and hauled, hadn't changed. Farm workers, some of whom had been in extreme conditions of modern-day slavery. These are actual cases. They're not the norm, but they're the extreme, that have been prosecuted by the US Department of Justice in federal court. Slavers are doing time in prison. By the way, there have been 9 of these cases. 7 have successfully issued in verdicts and 2 are in process right now. So when you have farm workers who have experienced these things standing in front of Taco Bell in 2001 with a few church people and a few well-meaning students holding signs, most of the public didn't pay much attention at first. There was a lot of sympathy. There was the sense that this was an important cause, even a noble one, but ultimately it was probably a lost cause. But that was not the case. And the first reason for that is that the Coalition of Immokalee Workers is incredibly smart about how they cultivated their own membership, how they used media to bring their message within Immokalee, Florida, and how they used media to create allies across a broad set of sectors in the United States, so that farm workers no longer stood only by themselves, but stood together with consumers. And that force was able to achieve a victory that probably hadn't been seen since David and Goliath. And that was in 2005, the largest fast food company in the world, Yum Brands, signed a fair food agreement, which did two things that are incredibly meaningful. One, for the first time in history, a massive multinational corporation paid money down its supply chain to increase the wages of farm workers harvesting for tomato growers who supplied tomatoes to their restaurants. And the second thing they did is that they worked with the CIW to design a code of conduct that had farm workers as the agents in implementing and investigating those abuses on the ground. This campaign, which is called the Campaign for Fair Food, developed by people that many would call on the margins, people supposedly without a voice, has been a campaign that has captured the hearts and minds of not only the American public, but people worldwide. Today, 9 corporations are working successfully with the Coalition of Immokalee Workers, corporations like McDonald's, Burger King, Subway, Whole Foods Market, Aramark, Sodexo, Compass Group. These are corporations that most people would find to be behemoths, not easy to change. And yet, because of the way that the CIW designed their campaigns, the way that they used media effectively, they were able to shift the balance of power and create a space and an industry for farm workers that they have not seen before. So let me tell you a little about what we're going to talk about, and that is the use of media. It's not just the media itself. We can have all the fine techniques in the world. Anybody can post a video to YouTube. I can put my little 4.5-year-old up on YouTube if I wanted to. The question is, how does the media advance particular aims? The key is not simply what media is, but what it does, and how it can change the balance of power, how it can provide a voice for people who otherwise may not have access to traditional means of getting their word out. It's not even just about media and goals. It's also about how being one's own media brings power and helps you set the terms of debate. It's about how you portray your organization, its people, and its goals. And it's also about creating an ongoing critical space for reflection and continued engagement with the people that you are in partnership with your supporters. For example, there were many attempts by corporations and growers to write their own codes of conduct, which sounded really, really nice. And yet they had no farm worker participation whatsoever. So they weren't worth much of anything, really. It was the fox guarding the hen house. The CIW's website and videos that they produced helped consumers become informed and understand the difference between change that was real and change that was not truly substantial. Right now, I'm happy to report that change is firmly underway in the fields, with over 90% of the Florida tomato growers now partners in the process of implementing this campaign. Now, we're going to talk about both the website of the CIW as well as some of its videos that it's produced. But I also want to just say, on a side note, the CIW has been quite creative in using its opponents' media to their own advantage by turning their own words and images on their head. Some of you might remember the Taco Bell boycott came at a time when the spokesperson for Taco Bell was a little itty-bitty chihuahua that used to walk around on a commercial saying, "Yo quiero Taco Bell." Well, we designed buttons that had Yo no quiero Taco Bell and had a chihuahua with fangs and blood dripping off it. The current campaign, which is a grocery campaign engaging Publix, Ahold, which owns Stop and Shop, Giant stores, which are right here in Washington, D.C., Martin's and others, Kroger, Trader Joe's, all of these stores have their own brands, their own logos, and the CIW has put those to good use. Right now, we've named the current tour the Do the Right Thing Tour because George Jenkins, the founder of Publix, said, don't let making a profit ever get in the way of doing the right thing. Well, Publix is being pretty intransigent, so we've named the tour after their founder's famed quote. Or you might take a look at this. Here's old school stuff, T-shirts. Don't forget the old school stuff works pretty well too. This is the Publix insignia. For anybody who's been in Florida, this insignia is ubiquitous in Florida, but it's been turned to our own advantage. CIW's media in Immokalee has been central to their ability to grow and develop leaders that stick and stay. Immokalee is a town about 45 minutes due east of Fort Myers. Many workers come and move through Immokalee. Most workers work there for a season that extends from October to May, more or less. And these are workers, some of whom are fresh, and some of whom have returned. And so it's important to cultivate leaders. And so I want to show one piece of media that CIW uses to create its own community organization. Could you open the Adobe Acrobat file, please? This is a political drawing. You'll see at the top it says El Patron. In the back you will see farm workers picking tomatoes. El Patron is the boss, and there's a farm worker being abused. Now if you scroll down, you'll see the bottom of the cartoon, which shows the workers standing together with their arms crossed and the patron being reduced to someone very small, and the worker is saying, now who's the little guy? Okay. What these drawings have done is allowed CIW farm workers to reflect among themselves and use their own experience to critically assess their place in the supply chain and the power they have. Another piece is that they have a low-power FM station, and it's called La Tuya. And for those of you who know Spanish, that kind of says it all. It's both theirs, it's yours, but it's also a little sign of resistance. It's also your mother's. So La Tuya gets music, cultural information, education on human rights, and other things out locally. Now, some of you are interested in real local struggles, and that's why I'm spending a minute talking about the very careful work CIW has done with media right there in Immokalee. Finally, there have been DVDs, like The Day in the Life of a Farm Worker, where a farm worker narrates some of the struggles and also some of the solutions that have come to pass because of workers joining together and joining also with consumers to make change happen. Now, CIW's media for the wider world has done a very important thing. First, it's put a face and a voice to farm workers, who are often reduced to two-dimensional objects. Farm workers are not people that most of us encounter on a daily basis, so we certainly encounter the fruits of their works. CIW is very keen on insisting that farm workers don't want pity. They want partnership. And this video that is just a short clip will picture one of the farm workers talking about, it's a YouTube video, about the extreme of modern-day slavery in the fields. Could you go to videos and select CIW modern-day slavery to the left? To the left, yeah.
Pero también hay condiciones donde trabajadores son esclavizados en el trabajo, donde están forzados a trabajar en contra de su voluntad, donde están golpeados por sus patrones si se tratan de quejarse, si se tratan de salir del campo de trabajo, los golpean para ponerlos como ejemplo a los demás, para que si se escapan eso les va a pasar. Y tantos casos, ¿verdad?, que la coalición ha prescriptado. En uno de los casos golpearon a un trabajador con un martillo en la rodilla. Y se sabe lo que se siente, ¿verdad?, golpearse o caerse, nada más golpearse, y peor tantito por un martillo en la rodilla para ponerlo como ejemplo a los otros compañeros. Y Y bueno, son vigiladas las 24 horas del día, es básicamente estás total, un control total, donde no puedes salir. Eso es la esclavitud y todavía existe aquí en los campos de la Florida.
You can see that in a very short space, in a medium that can be shared with many others, this message is compelling. You get to see a farm worker discussing the conditions, and you're called forth, a response is called forth. Now also the important part of CIW's media is to show consumers where they fit in the picture, and so they have used both their website as well as DVDs that they've produced with special videos that focus on the consumers who are their most important ally when it comes to engaging these food corporations, these retail corporations, because they're the company's customers. Now I just want to show the second video, which is a brief illustration of the supermarket campaign.
Sepan que el tomate que ellos consumen son basados en la explotación de los trabajadores agrícolas.
Los supermercados básicamente compran tomate en las compañías donde trabajamos.
Ellos empujan a las compañías a bajar el precio más barato del mercado.
Y eso lo obliga al trabajador de no tener un aumento.
La cubeta pesa 32 libras. Por 32 libras nosotros ganamos 45 centavos. Y el precio de la cubeta nunca ha aumentado por hace 30 años.
En el trabajo que hacemos nosotros no tenemos derechos. En los casos más extremos, trabajadores se enfrentan a esclavitud moderna. Supermercados tienen una influencia bastante grande. Por eso la coalición de trabajadores de Imócali está llevando una campaña por comida justa.
Lo que estamos queriendo es un centavo más por cada libre tomate.
Join with the coalition of Immokalee workers to help make fair food a reality. Take action at CIW-online.org.
In a world where your opponents are multi-million-dollar global corporations who can out-media and out-money you, you've got one thing going for you, and that is the truth upon which your campaign is built. CIW's website is the moral equivalent to a Frederick Douglass pamphlet during 19th century slavery here in the United States. However, it is now available and accessible worldwide. The CIW's website is a treasure trove of up-to-the-minute information, tours of Immokalee, flyers, and other resources. And certain of these videos, which are also available on the website, are tailored specifically to the religious, labor, student, and other sectors. So with that, I'll close my remarks, and I look forward to a very vigorous question and answer session. I'm very grateful to be on this panel with such wonderful fellow panelists and to be at this awesome conference. Thanks so much.